I rolled into Gallup around 9:30 at night with my fuel gauge kissing empty and my phone showing 3% battery. The Honda had been making this clicking sound for the last 100 miles that probably meant something expensive. I didn't look into it. Couldn't afford to. The last week had been car seats and rest stops. 4 days since I got laid off from the warehouse in Albuquerque. They called it restructuring. I called it bad timing, but nobody asked me. I'd been sleeping in the back of the Civic with my jacket balled up as a pillow and my duffel bag shoved against the door. Walmart parking lots mostly. One night at a truck stop where a guy knocked on my window at 2 in the morning to ask if I had jumper cables. I didn't. I had $243 left. Most of that was going into the tank whether I liked it or not. The Craigslist ad had gone up 3 days ago. Overnight cashier, Pilot Travel Center, Gallup, New Mexico, $17 an hour plus overnight differential. No experience required, start immediately. It read like one of those scams where they ask for your social security number and a $50 processing fee. But I called the number anyway because 17 an hour was 17 more than I had coming in, and the guy who picked up just said to come in after 9 p.m. and ask for Taylor. That was it. No interview questions. No, send your resume. Just show up. I figured it was either fake or desperate, and desperate I could work with. Gallup didn't look like much from the highway. Flat and wide and stuffed with gas stations, motels, and signs for Indian jewelry. The kind of town that existed because the interstate did. I took the exit and spotted the Pilot right there, big and fluorescent against the desert dark. I pulled into the lot and parked near the side, not close enough to look eager. The place was busy for a Wednesday. 18-wheelers lined up in the truck lanes, a couple of RVs near the diesel pumps, a few sedans at the regular spots. I sat there for a minute with the engine ticking itself cool and tried to get my head in the right space. This wasn't complicated. Go in, be polite, take the job if they offered it, work the shift, get paid. I'd done retail before. I could smile at truckers and scan Slim Jims until 6 a.m. if it meant cash in hand. I grabbed my wallet and got out. The air smelled like diesel and fryer grease. I crossed the lot and pulled open the glass door. Inside it was bright and generic. Aisles of chips and jerky and energy drinks, a coffee station with 6 pumps, a hot case full of taquitos rotating under heat lamps. Navajo rugs hung on one wall next to a display of turquoise bracelets. There was a trucker at the coffee station and a woman in a Broncos hoodie squinting at the beer cooler. Behind the counter stood a woman I didn't recognize but somehow knew was Taylor. She was maybe 5'6", sturdy build, dark hair pulled back tight. She wore a Navy pilot polo tucked into black pants and an ID badge clipped to her collar. Her expression didn't shift when I walked in. She just watched me cross the floor with the kind of stillness that made my shoulders tense up. I stopped at the counter. "Hey, I'm here about the overnight position." "Hayden Bradley," she said. Not a question. A statement. I blinked. "Yeah." "You called Monday?" "Right." She didn't smile, didn't nod, just held out her hand. "ID, please." I pulled my driver's license from my wallet and handed it over. She took it without looking at it, turned, and walked toward a door marked Employees Only. "Follow me." I followed. The back hallway was narrow and beige. Framed posters about hand washing and workplace safety lined the walls. She moved with the kind of efficiency that didn't waste steps, didn't look back to check if I was keeping up. We passed a storage closet, a mop sink, and a door labeled office before she stopped at another door. Break room, probably. She pushed it open and stepped inside. I followed her in. The room was small. A table with 4 plastic chairs, a microwave on a cart, a mini fridge humming in the corner, a corkboard covered in schedules and OSHA printouts. Fluorescent lights made everything look washed out. It smelled like old coffee and something vaguely chemical. Taylor moved to the table and picked up a single sheet of paper that had been sitting there. She held it out to me. "Your shift starts at midnight," she said. "You'll work until 6 a.m. Jacob will show you the register and the cleaning tasks. But before you touch anything, you read this." I took the paper. It was warm from the overhead light. "Read all of it," she said. "Every line." "Okay. Do you understand?" "Yeah." She watched me for a second longer than felt normal. Then she turned and left, pulling the door shut behind her. I stood there holding the paper. It was printed in black ink on standard copy paper, single-spaced. The heading at the top said, "Overnight Shift Rules" in bold. I sat down at the table and started reading. Overnight Shift Rules 1. The register must remain attended between midnight and 6 a.m. If you need to step away, call Jacob to cover. 2. Lock the front doors at exactly midnight. Unlock them at exactly 6 a.m. Do not open them outside these times for any reason. 3. Between midnight and 6 a.m., customers already inside may complete purchases and leave. Do not permit new customers to enter. 4. If someone knocks on the locked door, do not acknowledge them. Do not make eye contact. 5. At 2:15 a.m., the lights in aisle 3 will flicker. Do not go into aisle 3 until the flickering stops. 6. If a customer asks you what time it is, tell them the correct time. If they ask again, tell them you don't know. 7. Do not accept returns between midnight and 6 a.m. 8. If the phone rings, answer with Pilot Travel Center Gallup. If the caller asks for Taylor, say she is unavailable and take a message. If the caller asks for anyone else, hang up. 9. At 3:30 a.m., you will hear knocking from the storage closet. Do not open it. The knocking will stop on its own. 10. If you see someone in the parking lot standing completely still, do not watch them. Continue your tasks. 11. Sweep and mop the floor between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. Complete this task before 5:15 a.m. 12. If a customer leaves an item on the counter and walks out, place it in the lost and found box under the register. Do not call after them. 13. At 5 a.m., check that all cooler doors are closed. If one is propped open, close it immediately. 14. Do not go outside between midnight and 6 a.m. 15. Follow these rules exactly. Your safety depends on it. I read it twice. Then I set it down on the table and just sat there. The first few rules made sense. Standard stuff. Lock the doors. Don't let people in after midnight. Answer the phone a certain way. I'd worked a night shift at a 7-Eleven in Tucson a couple years back, and they had similar policies. Liability stuff mostly. But the rest. The lights in aisle 3. The knocking from the storage closet. Someone standing still in the parking lot. I picked the paper back up and read Rule 15 again. Your safety depends on it. That part bugged me a little. I'd seen plenty of weird training material before. Corporate loved to scare minimum wage workers into compliance. But this didn't read like corporate. It was too specific, too calm, and the tone was wrong. It wasn't trying to cover the company's ass. It was trying to cover mine. I thought about walking out, just leaving the paper on the table and getting back in my car and driving somewhere else. Arizona, maybe. California, if the gas lasted. But I had $243 and nowhere to go, and this job paid $17 an hour. I folded the paper in half and stood up. The hallway was empty when I stepped out. I walked back toward the front and found Taylor at the counter again, ringing up a guy in a Carhartt jacket. She glanced at me, finished the transaction, and waited until the guy left before speaking. "You read it?" "Yeah. Do you have questions?" I had about 15. I didn't ask any of them. "No," I said. She nodded once. "Jacob's in the back stocking shelves. Go find him. He'll get you started." "Okay." I turned to go. "Hayden." I looked back. Her expression hadn't changed, but something in her eyes sharpened. "The rules aren't suggestions." "Got it." "Good." I walked toward the aisles, my hands stuffed in my hoodie pockets, the paper folded flat against my ribs. I didn't know what I'd just agreed to. but I knew the rules were going to matter tonight. Taylor looked past me toward the back of the store. "Jacob," she called. Not loud, just flat and clear. A guy appeared from aisle 4 carrying a box of Cliff Bars, probably 6 feet, wiry build, sandy blonde hair cut short. He had dark circles under his pale blue eyes that made him look like he hadn't slept in a week, maybe longer. He wore a pilot polo under a gray hoodie and had a box cutter clipped to his belt. "This is Hayden," Taylor said. "He's on overnight starting tonight. Show him the basics." Jacob looked at me, not suspicious exactly. More tired. "Yeah," he said. "Okay." Taylor handed me back my driver's license. I slid it into my wallet. She didn't say anything else, just walked toward the office door and disappeared inside. The latch clicked behind her. Jacob set the box down on the counter and nodded toward the coffee station. "Come on." I followed him across the store. The fluorescent lights buzzed a little. Faint classic rock played from a speaker somewhere overhead. Can't remember the song. Something with too much guitar. "You read the rules?" Jacob asked. "Yeah." "All of them?" "Yeah." He stopped at the coffee station and pulled a stack of filters from underneath. "Good. Don't forget them." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just watched as he opened the first brewer and dumped the old grounds into a trash bin next to the counter. The smell hit me. Burnt coffee and something slightly sour. He rinsed the basket in a small sink I hadn't noticed before, shook it dry and fitted a new filter inside. "You do this every 4 hours, he said. "Midnight, 4 a.m. Doesn't matter if anyone's drinking it. Fresh pots. Got it?" He measured out grounds from a big plastic tub. 6 scoops. Didn't use a scale or anything, just counted them out and leveled each one with his finger. Then he filled the reservoir with water from a pitcher he kept next to the sink and hit the brew button. The machine started hissing. "There's 6 brewers," he said. 2 regular, 1 decaf, 1 hazelnut, 2 seasonal. Right now that's pumpkin spice and some peppermint thing. You do them all at the same time so you're not back here all night. I nodded. Seemed simple enough. He moved to the hot case next. The taquitos inside were rotating slowly under heat lamps, looking dried out and kind of sad. He opened the back panel and pulled one out with tongs, checked the label on the shelf. "These go out at 1 a.m., he said. "You replace the whole batch. There's backup in the walk-in cooler. Same with the hot dogs and the breakfast sandwiches. But those you swap at 5. 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., I repeated. "Yeah." He put the taquito back and closed the panel. "Don't leave old ones in there. People get sick. Taylor hears about it." I figured that was standard food safety stuff, but I nodded anyway. He walked me back to the register next, showed me how to log in with the generic overnight account, username night shift, password pilot Jonah99. Took him 3 tries because the keyboard was sticky. He walked through a standard transaction, then showed me how to cancel an item if someone changed their mind, how to override a price if the scanner read it wrong, and how to process a fuel pump payment. "Most of it's automatic," he said. "But if the drawer jams, don't force it. Just call Taylor." "She here all night?" "No, she leaves at 11:30. He glanced at me. "You call her cell if something breaks. Numbers taped under the counter." I looked. There was a strip of masking tape with 10 digits written in Sharpie. "What counts as something breaking?" I asked. Jacob's face didn't change. "You'll know." That sat wrong with me. Not the words exactly. The way he said them. Flat and final. The way someone talks about weather they can't do anything about. I wanted to ask what he meant, but he was already moving again. He grabbed a spray bottle and a rag from under the counter and wiped down the surface near the lottery display. His movements were quick, efficient, like he'd done this 1,000 times and wanted to finish before something interrupted. "You worked overnights before?" he asked. "No." "You read all 15 rules?" "Yeah." "You asked already." "I know." He stopped wiping and looked at me. I'm asking if you actually read them. Not skimmed, read. I read them twice. He studied me for a second. Then he tossed the rag back under the counter. Good. People who don't take them seriously usually laugh. Laugh at what? The rules. They think it's some weird corporate joke or a hazing thing. He leaned against the counter. New people show up, read the list, make some comment about how random it is. Then they don't follow it exactly and they're gone by morning. Gone where? Just gone. I waited for him to say more. He didn't. You mean they quit? I asked. No. His voice dropped a little. I mean they're gone. Taylor puts up another ad the next day. A truck rumbled past outside. The whole building vibrated slightly. I watched Jacob's face. He wasn't smiling. Wasn't trying to scare me. He looked serious. Heavy serious. The kind of look someone gives you when they're too tired to sugarcoat something. So you're saying the rules aren't just store policy, I said. I'm saying follow them exactly. I wanted to ask what happened if you didn't. Wanted to ask if he'd actually seen someone disappear, or if this was some story Taylor made up to keep people in line. But the way he was looking at me made it clear he wouldn't answer. Or couldn't. I thought about the Civic outside. Thought about the $243 in my wallet and the clicking sound the engine made on the highway. Thought about the last 4 days sleeping in parking lots with my jacket balled up under my head. This job paid $17 an hour. That was $272 for a 16-hour weekend. 2 shifts and I'd have enough for a motel room and groceries. A week and I could fix the car. Maybe. So yeah. Jacob's warning landed. I heard it. But I was too broke to treat it like anything more than superstition. I'll follow them, I said. Jacob nodded once. Okay. He didn't look relieved. Just resigned. Midnight came faster than I expected. Jacob locked the front doors at exactly 12, pulled a key from his pocket, turned the deadbolt, and tested the handle twice. Through the glass, I could see the parking lot. Still plenty of trucks out there. A few cars near the gas pumps. Nobody tried to come in. That's it, Jacob said. No one gets in until 6. Even if they knock? Especially if they knock. He pocketed the key. Rule 4. Don't acknowledge them. Don't look. Right. He walked back toward the storage area. I stayed at the register. The store felt different now, quieter. The music still played overhead, but it sounded farther away. The fluorescents buzzed a little louder. I checked my phone. 12:03. Battery at 2%. I hadn't charged it since yesterday. The door chimed. I looked up. A guy in a trucker cap and reflective vest was walking toward the counter. Older, maybe 50. Graying beard, heavy build, Carhartt jacket over flannel. He had the look of someone who'd been driving all night and just wanted caffeine. He didn't say anything. Just headed straight for the coffee station, filled a large cup with regular, and grabbed 2 bags of teriyaki jerky from the rack nearby. I straightened a little as he approached the counter. He set the items down, pulled a 20 from his wallet. Just this? I asked. Yeah. I rang him up, $8.67, handed him his change and the receipt. He nodded once, pocketed the money, and walked out through... Wait. No. The doors were locked. I looked past him toward the entrance. The deadbolt was still turned. But he walked straight through and pushed the door open anyway. It swung wide, and he stepped outside into the lot. The door settled shut behind him. I stared. That didn't make sense. Jacob had locked it. I watched him do it, but the guy just walked out. I stood there for a second, trying to figure out if I'd missed something. Maybe Jacob unlocked it while I wasn't looking. Maybe the guy had been inside before midnight and I just didn't notice. Jacob came back around the corner carrying a box of Gatorade. Did you unlock the door? I asked. No. Why? A guy just left. Jacob set the box down. Big guy, trucker vest. Yeah, that's Cooper. He's always here. But the door, he was inside before midnight, Jacob said. Rule 3, anyone already in can finish and leave. You just can't let new people in. Oh. Right. I felt stupid for a second. The rule said that. I'd read it twice. Jacob didn't comment. Just picked up the Gatorade and started restocking the cooler. I stood behind the register and tried to settle. Around 12:20, 2 teenagers came down from the aisles. A girl and a guy. The girl had long, light brown hair and an oversized sweatshirt with a college logo I didn't recognize. The guy wore a zip-up hoodie and had his hands in his pockets. Both of them looked like they were killing time. The girl set down a bag of Sour Patch Kids, a Reese's, and a can of Monster. The guy added a Snickers and a Red Bull. That it? I asked. Yeah, the girl said. I rang them up. 12:40. She handed me a crumpled 10 and 3 ones. I gave her back the change. Thanks, she said. The guy didn't say anything. Just followed her toward the door. They left the same way Cooper did, walked straight through. Door opened, closed behind them. I watched them cross the parking lot toward a beat-up Camry near the edge. The girl laughed at something. They got in and drove off. The store went quiet again. I refilled the coffee station at 12:30, dumped the old pots, rinsed the baskets, measured out 6 scoops each. The peppermint one smelled weird, too sweet, like someone melted candy canes into it. I wiped down a spill near the soda fountain. Just a small puddle, probably Sprite, sticky. Jacob restocked shelves in the back. I could hear boxes sliding, plastic crinkling. The job felt easy, almost too easy compared to sleeping in my car for 4 days straight. Walk around, keep things clean, sell coffee to truckers, $17 an hour for that. But the rules sheet sat in my head, just there, quiet, like a question I hadn't been asked yet. I was staring at the counter, halfway through wiping down the lottery display with the rag Jacob had left behind, when the scanner beeped twice. 2 crisp beeps, clean and precise. I looked up. Nothing under it. No item, no hand, just the empty scanner bed reflecting fluorescent light. The register screen didn't change. Same idle display showing the pilot logo bouncing corner to corner. I stood there holding the rag, still damp with whatever chemical spray Jacob used. My first thought was malfunction. Static discharge, maybe. Old equipment acting up. Then I remembered. The rule. I didn't remember the exact wording, but it was in there. Something about the scanner. Something about stepping back. I dropped the rag on the counter and pulled the cash drawer shut. It rolled smooth on the tracks and clicked into place. Then I stepped back. 1 full step, then another half step to be sure. 30 seconds. That's what the rule said. I counted in my head. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. The fluorescence buzzed overhead. The classic rock station was playing something I didn't recognize, all guitar and drums with the vocals buried under static. I kept counting. At around 12 Mississippi, I noticed Jacob. He was standing at the end of aisle 2, holding a box of granola bars in both hands. Just standing there, watching me, not moving, not stocking, just watching. His expression was flat, neutral, but his eyes tracked me with the kind of focus that made my skin crawl a little. It felt like a test, not the scanner. That was just the setup. The real test was whether I'd follow through, whether I'd actually stand here for the full 30 seconds doing nothing while he watched. I kept counting. 18 Mississippi. 19 Mississippi. My hands felt useless at my sides. I shoved them in my hoodie pockets. 23 Mississippi. The music cut out for half a second, then came back louder, Same song, same static. 28 Mississippi, 29:30. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and stepped back to the counter. The scanner sat quiet. No more beeps. Jacob turned without a word and disappeared down aisle 2. I picked up the rag and kept wiping, but my hands were shaking a little. Not much. Just enough that I noticed. That was it. Nothing happened. No consequence, no follow-up. But I felt it anyway. The weight of doing it right. I figured Jacob would say something. Confirm I'd passed, or at least acknowledge it. He didn't. I was reaching for the spray bottle to do another pass when I heard the footsteps. Except I didn't hear them. That's the thing. I looked up and there was a man standing at the counter, maybe 3 feet away. And I hadn't heard the door chime. Hadn't heard footsteps. Hadn't heard anything. He was just there. I froze. The guy was wearing a reflective jacket, the kind diesel customers wear, bright yellow with silver stripes across the chest and shoulders. Under it was a plain gray shirt, and below that, jeans that looked new, clean. He looked normal at first. But then I actually looked at his face, and something was wrong. Not horror movie wrong, not disfigured or bloody or any of that. Just wrong. His features were all there. Eyes, nose, mouth. Hair cropped short and dark. Skin pale, maybe mid-40s. But it didn't sit right. The proportions were off by just enough that my brain kept trying to correct it. His eyes were a little too far apart. His mouth a little too centered. His nose too narrow for the width of his face. It looked flat. That's the only way I can describe it. Like someone had taken a photo of a face and stretched it over a mannequin head, pulling it tight at the edges. I blinked, trying to reset what I was seeing. He didn't blink back. "I already paid," he said. His voice was normal, flat but normal, no accent, no inflection. I opened my mouth, then closed it. "I need the long receipt," he added. Long receipt. I knew what that meant. Diesel customers needed itemized receipts for their logs. Fuel breakdown, tax, total gallons. The system printed them separately if you hit the right button. But I hadn't rung him up, I would have remembered. There'd only been a handful of people tonight. Cooper, the 2 teenagers, the older woman with the reading glasses, not this guy. Still, I didn't argue. I turned to the register and logged in. The screen came up showing no active transaction. I navigated to the receipt reprint menu. It took 3 tries because the keyboard was sticky and I kept hitting the wrong keys. My hands were shaking again. The printer started whirring. A long strip of paper rolled out, maybe 8 inches. I tore it off at the perforation. Then I grabbed the stapler from beside the register. I didn't think about it. Just did it. 1 staple in the top left corner. Then I crouched down and opened the cabinet under the counter. The blue lockbox was shoved in the back corner behind a stack of plastic bags and a roll of receipt paper. I pulled it forward. It was metal. Dark blue paint chipped around the edges. A simple latch on the front. No lock. About the size of a shoebox. I flipped the latch and lifted the lid. Inside was empty except for a few folded receipts and a pen with no cap. I slid the long receipt inside and closed the lid. The latch clicked. That's when I felt it. Warmth, not from my hand, from the box. It was warm, not hot but noticeably warm, like something inside was powered, running. I pulled my hand back and stood up fast. The man was still standing there. He tilted his head, just a little, maybe 15 degrees to the left. His eyes didn't follow the movement. They stayed locked forward, on me. Then he turned, not walked, turned. Like his whole body was on a pivot, and he headed toward the back of the store, toward the restroom hall. I watched him go, no footsteps, His feet moved. I could see his legs working, his shoes hitting the tile, but there was no sound, no scuff, no squeak, nothing. He passed aisle 3 and disappeared around the corner toward the restrooms. I stood there, gripping the edge of the counter. My brain was trying to process it, trying to file it under something rational. I couldn't. After a few seconds, I remembered the security monitor. It was mounted under the counter, a small black and white screen split into 4 camera feeds. Front entrance, fuel pumps, aisle 3, restroom hall. I crouched down and stared at the bottom right feed, the restroom hall. The image was grainy, but I could make out the hallway. The men's room door on the left, women's on the right. The feed stuttered. Not froze, stuttered. Like it was skipping frames. 1 second the hallway was empty. The next, there was a flicker of movement. Then empty again. I leaned closer. Another stutter. Another flicker. The man should have been there. He'd walked that direction maybe 10 seconds ago. But the feed just kept skipping. It felt rehearsed. That's the word that came to mind. Like the whole thing had been staged, timed, scripted. The man, the receipt, the lockbox, even the camera glitching. I straightened up and stepped back from the monitor. The store was quiet again, just the buzzing fluorescents and the faint classic rock from the speaker. I looked toward the restroom hall. Nothing. No movement. No sound. I stayed behind the counter and didn't move. At 2:08 in the morning, the side door alarm chimed. Just once. I looked up from the counter where I'd been standing for the past 15 minutes doing absolutely nothing. Jacob was somewhere in the back restocking something. The store felt quieter than before, which didn't make sense because nothing had actually changed. Same fluorescent buzz. Same classic rock barely audible through the ceiling speaker. Same empty aisles, but quieter. The side door was past aisle 5, near the diesel pumps. I couldn't see it from the register, but I could see the glass panels beside the main entrance that looked out toward that part of the lot. I walked over. Through the glass, the diesel lanes stretched out under yellow overhead lights. Mostly empty. One rig parked at the far pump, cab dark, no movement. The pavement was wet from something, maybe earlier rain I hadn't noticed. It reflected the lights in long streaks, and there was a figure, standing by the pump closest to the building, not moving, just standing there, facing the store. I couldn't make out details. The distance and the lighting made it hard, but I could see the shape, person-sized, wearing something dark, hands at their sides, completely still. I thought about Rule 10. Don't watch anyone standing completely still in the parking lot. I stepped back from the glass. My phone was in my pocket. Dead now, probably. I'd stopped checking after it hit 2% an hour ago. No clock on the wall. I glanced at the register screen, but it just showed the Pilot logo bouncing around. I didn't know how long the figure had been there. I went back to the counter and picked up the rag I'd been using earlier. It was dry now. I folded it twice and set it down next to the spray bottle. The side door alarm didn't chime again. At 2:10, the knocking started. Soft at first, steady. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more, coming from the side door. I was still at the counter. My first instinct was to check who it was, see if they needed help. Maybe they'd locked their keys in their truck or needed to use the restroom. That's what you do when someone knocks. You answer. I started walking toward the side door without thinking about it. Jacob came around the corner from aisle 4 fast. Not running, but moving with purpose. He cut directly in front of me, one hand up. "Third rule," he said, voice low and tight. "That's the one people die on." I stopped. My hand was maybe 6 inches from the push bar. I could see the door now. Metal frame, small square window at eye level, the word "exit" stenciled in red, and frost, spreading across the metal push bar in thin white lines, branching out from the center like veins. I watched it grow, slow but visible. The metal underneath turned darker, almost black where the frost touched. The knocking continued. Same rhythm, patient. Knock, knock, knock. Pause, knock, knock, knock. Each time the knocks hit, the overhead lights dipped. Not a flicker, just a dip. Like the building was pulling power from somewhere else to keep something running. The fluorescence dimmed for half a second, then came back. Knock, knock, knock. Dip. Knock, knock, knock. Dip. I took a step back, then another. Jacob stayed between me and the door, watching the frost spread. His jaw was tight. Box cutter still clipped to his belt. Hands loose at his sides, but ready. "We don't open it," he said. Wasn't a question. "No," I said. The knocking kept going. I thought about the figure I'd seen outside, standing by the pump, facing the store. I thought about Rule 4. Don't acknowledge or make eye contact with anyone knocking on locked doors, but this wasn't the locked front doors. This was the side door. And the rule didn't say, "Don't open it." It said, "Don't acknowledge." Except Rule 14 said, "Don't go outside between midnight and 6. And opening the door meant going outside, or letting something in. The lights dipped again. Jacob turned his head slightly, not looking away from the door, but checking the rest of the store. "Go make coffee," he said. "I just made it at midnight." "Make it again." Knock, knock, knock. "Jacob, go." I went. The coffee station was at the front near the main entrance. 6 brewers lined up on the counter. I grabbed the first pot, the one labeled regular in peeling sticker letters, and dumped it in the small sink. Still half full, steaming. I rinsed the basket, fitted a new filter, scooped 6 scoops of grounds from the plastic tub, hands moving through the steps Jacob had shown me. Fill the reservoir with water from the pitcher. Start the brew cycle. Behind me, the knocking continued. I moved to the second brewer. Decaf, dumped it. Same process. Filter, grounds, water, start. The lights kept dipping with each knock. The music from the overhead speaker cut out entirely now. Just the buzz of the fluorescence and the hiss of the coffee brewing. I worked through all 6 brewers. Regular, decaf, hazelnut, pumpkin spice, peppermint, and the second regular. By the time I finished, the station was surrounded by steam, thick and warm. The air smelled like burnt coffee and fake cinnamon. I stood there and watched the pots fill. And I noticed something. The knocking was still happening. Same rhythm, same patient pace. But quieter. Not softer exactly. More like it was coming from farther away, or like something was absorbing the sound before it reached the front of the store. I looked at the steam rising from the brewers. Dense. Almost solid-looking under the fluorescence. The warmer the coffee station ran, the less force the knocking seemed to carry. I didn't know if that made sense. Didn't know if I was imagining it. But I kept the pots brewing. When one filled, I dumped it and started another. The sink overflowed twice. Coffee pooled on the counter and dripped onto the floor. I didn't care. Jacob was still by the side door. I could see him from here, just his silhouette past the aisles. He hadn't moved. The frost on the push bar had stopped spreading. I could tell because the black metal underneath wasn't getting darker. I kept the coffee going. Knock, 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 dip. Knock, 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 dip. My hands were shaking again. The steam made everything damp. My hoodie stuck to my back. Sweat or condensation, I couldn't tell. I thought about the rules. 15 of them. I'd read them twice before my shift started. Some made sense. Lock the doors at midnight. Don't accept returns. Standard stuff. Some didn't make sense until they did. This was one of those. After 2:25, I'm guessing no clock, no phone, the knocking changed. It stopped being knocks, started being a scrape. Slow, dragging. moving down the door seam from top to bottom, then starting over. Metal on metal, maybe, or something harder. Each scrape pulsed the lights. Worse than before. The fluorescence dimmed almost to nothing, stayed dark for a full second, then surged back brighter than normal before settling. Scrape, pulse, scrape, pulse. I kept dumping coffee and restarting the brewers. The station was a mess. Ground scattered across the counter. Water everywhere. Steam so thick I could barely see the pots. But the frost on the side door wasn't spreading anymore. I could see that much. Jacob was still there, still watching, but the frost had stopped at the edges of the push bar. The black metal underneath stayed the same shade, no darker. The scraping continued, patient, methodical. I filled another pot with water. My hands were steadier now, not calm but focused. I knew what I was doing. Keep the station running, keep the steam going, keep whatever was outside from getting closer. The scraping started to ease, not stop, just ease. The pressure behind it felt lighter, less insistent. The lights still pulsed, but not as deep. The fluorescence stayed brighter during the dips. I dumped the hazelnut pot and started it again. The scraping slowed, then it was just a faint drag, barely audible over the hiss of the brewers, then quiet, not silent. The building still hummed, the fluorescence still buzzed, but the scraping stopped. I stood at the coffee station with my hands on the counter, steam rising around me, and watched Jacob at the side door. He didn't move for a long time. Then he turned and looked at me. His face was pale, dark circles under his eyes, darker than before. He nodded once. I nodded back. The frost on the push bar stayed where it was. The lights stopped pulsing. The music from the overhead speaker came back on, faint and crackling. Whatever had been outside wasn't knocking anymore. But it didn't feel like it left. It felt like it backed away, like it was still out there, just waiting. At 3:11 a.m., the door chimed and a family walked in. That was it. Just normal people doing a normal thing. Mom came in first, holding the door for two kids behind her. Girl maybe 8 years old, wearing a bright pink jacket over pajama pants. Boy a bit younger in a puffy coat, clutching a juice box. Dad followed last, hand on the boy's shoulder, guiding him inside. I stood at the counter and watched them spread out. The mom, Lexi, I heard the dad say her name, headed straight for the chip aisle. The dad, Carl, steered both kids toward the candy section near the soda cooler. Normal stuff. Road trip snacks, bathroom break purchases. I almost laughed. Not out loud, just that feeling in your chest when relief hits. Because they looked so regular, so unremarkable. Mom picked up a bag of Doritos and read the back. The little girl pointed at a Snickers bar and asked if she could have it. The boy wandered toward the Coke cooler and pressed his face against the glass. I thought maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe the guy in the yellow jacket was just some trucker with a weird face and quiet shoes. Maybe the knocking was pipes or wind or the building settling. Maybe I was running on no sleep and too much adrenaline and my brain was filling in gaps that weren't there. That's what I wanted to believe. Lexi walked up to the counter holding the Doritos, a pack of gum, and a bottle of water. She smiled. Tired, but real. Long night, she said. Yeah, I said. I scanned the Doritos. Beep, then the gum. Beep, then the water. The register added it up. $8.43. Carl brought the kids over. Violet, I heard him say her name too, held the Snickers. Caleb had a blue Gatorade he must have grabbed from the cooler. Carl set both on the counter without a word and I rang them up. Total came to $13.71. Lexi pulled a card from her wallet. Debit card, blue and white, normal bank logo. She slid it into the reader and we both waited. The reader beeped once. Declined. She frowned, pulled the card out and tried again. Same thing. Beep. Declined. That's weird, she said. She didn't sound stressed, just confused. Let me try another one. She pulled a second card, slid it in. Beep, declined. Then the scanner beeped twice. Sharp, crisp, back to back. I looked down. Nothing under the scanner. Just the empty glass bed reflecting the overhead lights. My stomach dropped. Lexi froze. Not like she stopped moving. Like someone hit pause on a video. Her hand was still holding the card reader. Her mouth was half open like she'd been about to say something. But her eyes locked on the counter and didn't blink. I looked at the kids. Violet stood beside her dad with the Snickers wrapper crinkling in her hand. Her face was blank, completely smooth, no expression at all. Eyes forward, staring at nothing. Caleb stood next to her. Same thing. Gatorade bottle in both hands, face empty, not scared, not bored, not tired, just off. Carl stood behind them with his hand still on Caleb's shoulder. He wasn't frozen like the others, but he wasn't looking at me either. He was staring at the side of Lexi's head like he was waiting for something. I stepped back from the register. My hands moved on their own. I grabbed the edge of the cash drawer and slid it shut. It clicked into place. Then I took one full step back, then another half step. I started counting. 1 Mississippi. The fluorescence buzzed louder. 2 Mississippi. The music cut out completely. 3 Mississippi. Lexi didn't blink. Violet didn't move. Caleb's fingers stayed locked around the Gatorade bottle in the exact same position. 4 Mississippi. I kept my eyes on them. I didn't want to. I wanted to look away or call for Jacob or do literally anything else, but I couldn't stop watching. 5 Mississippi. Carl's hand tightened on Caleb's shoulder. Just a little. His knuckles went white. 6 Mississippi. Lexi's chest rose, slow, like she was inhaling through water. 7 Mississippi. I thought about the man in the yellow jacket, the way he'd appeared at the counter without sound, the way his face looked wrong, the way he'd asked for the long receipt in that flat voice. 8 Mississippi. This was the same thing. 9 Mississippi. Not an isolated incident. Not a one-time glitch. 10 Mississippi. A mechanism. 11 Mississippi. The lockbox under the counter was part of it. 12 Mississippi. Jacob appeared at the end of aisle 2. He wasn't holding anything this time. Just standing there watching me. His face was pale, and his eyes were locked on the register, not on me, like he was waiting to see if the screen would do something. 13 Mississippi. I kept counting. 14 Mississippi. Lexi's mouth moved, just barely. Her lips parted another fraction of an inch. 15 Mississippi. The buzzing got worse. It felt like it was coming from inside my skull. 16 Mississippi. I wanted to stop counting. I wanted to walk away from the counter and go sit in the break room and pretend this shift didn't exist. 17 Mississippi, but I didn't. 18 Mississippi. Carl's jaw tightened. He wasn't frozen like the others, but he wasn't doing anything either. Just standing there, waiting. 19 Mississippi. The scanner sat quiet. No more beeps. 20 Mississippi. Halfway done. 21 Mississippi. My hands were shaking again. I pressed them against my sides. 22 Mississippi. Violet's eyes didn't move, didn't blink, didn't track anything. 23 Mississippi. Caleb's face stayed blank. Empty. 24 Mississippi. I thought about the blue lockbox under the counter, the warmth I'd felt coming from it after I put the first receipt inside. 25 Mississippi. I thought about the stapler, the way I'd grabbed it without thinking, like I'd done this before. 26 Mississippi. The music stayed off, just buzzing and my own heartbeat in my ears. 27 Mississippi. Almost done. 28 Mississippi. Lexi's chest fell. Slow exhale. 29 Mississippi. I braced myself. I didn't know for what. 30 Mississippi. I stepped forward. Lexi blinked. Her eyes came back. Not all at once. It was gradual, like someone turning up a dimmer switch. She pulled the card out of the reader and looked at it, then looked at me. Her mouth moved. Stiff. Like her jaw wasn't working right. I need the long receipt too. Her voice sounded flat, rehearsed, the same tone the man in the yellow jacket had used. My throat went dry. Okay, I said. I turned to the register and logged into the reprint menu. My hands were shaking bad enough that I missed the keys twice. The screen loaded slow. Too slow. Behind me, Carl's hand dropped from Caleb's shoulder. The kid stayed quiet. Nobody moved. The printer started. It spit out the first 6 inches of paper. Itemized list. Diesel fuel breakdown. Tax. Gallons. Then it kept going. 8 inches. 10 inches. 12. I waited for it to stop. It didn't. The paper curled over the counter edge and started piling on the floor. I grabbed it and tried to tear it at the perforation, but there was no perforation. Just continuous paper, like an old payroll ledger. 15 inches, 20 inches, 2 feet. What the hell? I said. Quiet, not to anyone. Jacob was suddenly beside me. I didn't hear him walk over. He was just there. He looked at the paper spilling out of the printer and his face didn't change. Not surprised, not confused, just tired. Let it finish, he said. It's not stopping. It will. I held the growing roll of paper in both hands. It kept coming. I scanned the text as it printed. Dates, times, names. Most of it was transactions, normal stuff. Diesel purchases, snack sales, pump numbers and totals. But some lines were different. Bolder, darker ink. I saw a name I didn't recognize. Martinez. Next to it, a date from 4 months ago. Next to that, a time, 3:17 a.m. Another bold line. Chen. 2 months ago, 2:54 a.m. Another. Kapoor. 6 weeks ago, 4:22 a.m. Then I saw it. Bradley. My last name. Next to tonight's date. Next to the time, 4:45 a.m. My hands went numb. The paper almost slipped out of my grip. Jacob, I said. My voice cracked. He was already looking at the line. He didn't say anything. What is this? I asked. He didn't answer right away. The printer kept going. The roll in my hands was easily 4 feet long now. Heavy. Warm. The lockbox doesn't store receipts, Jacob said finally. Quiet. Flat. It tracks what the place takes. I stared at him. What does that mean? He looked at me. His pale blue eyes were hollow. Dark circles underneath like bruises. It means you follow the rules exactly, he said. All of them, especially after 4:30. The printer stopped. I stood there holding the massive roll of paper. It was warm in my hands, almost hot. The last printed line was my name. Bradley, tonight's date. 4:45 a.m. I looked at Lexi. She was standing at the counter with her card still in her hand, staring at me with empty eyes, waiting. I grabbed the stapler. My hands moved automatically. I folded the top corner of the receipt and pressed the stapler down. Click. One staple in the top left corner. I folded another section. Click. Another staple. I kept going, folding and stapling. The paper was too long, too thick. I folded it in half, then in half again, then started rolling it. The stapler jammed. I squeezed the handle. Nothing. I pried it open and saw the staple track was bent. Empty. Jacob, just fold it, he said. I folded the massive roll as tight as I could. It was the size of a burrito, thick and awkward and way too big for the lockbox. I crouched and pulled the blue lockbox out from under the counter. I opened the latch and lifted the lid. The first receipt was still inside. The one from the man in the yellow jacket, folded neatly with one staple in the corner. I shoved the massive roll inside. It barely fit. I had to press down on it with both hands to get the lid to close. The latch clicked. Heat pulsed through the metal. Not burning, just wrong, like something inside was running. I pulled my hand back and stood up fast. Lexi blinked again. This time her eyes looked normal, focused. She smiled, tired but real. "Thanks," she said. She turned and walked toward the door. Carl followed. He put his hand back on Caleb's shoulder and guided both kids toward the exit. Violet looked back at me once. Her face was normal again. Curious. She waved. I didn't wave back. The door chimed as they left. I watched them through the glass. They walked across the parking lot toward a sedan parked near the diesel pumps. Lexi unlocked it. Carl opened the back door and helped the kids inside. They buckled in. Lexi got in the driver's seat. The car started. Headlights came on. They pulled out of the lot and turned onto the access road. Gone. Like they were finishing an errand they never chose to run. I turned to Jacob. "What happens at 4:45? I asked. He looked at me for a long time. Then he picked up the rag I'd left on the counter and started wiping down the scanner bed. "Don't know," he said. "Never made it past 4:30. I grabbed my phone from my pocket, still at 2%. I pulled the masking tape strip from under the counter and squinted at the smudged handwriting. Taylor's cell number. 7 digits in faded blue ink. I dialed. It rang once, then cut straight to voicemail, not even her voice. Just the automated lady saying the person I was trying to reach was unavailable. I hung up. Tried again. Same thing. Straight to voicemail. I set the phone on the counter and looked at the clock above the cigarette display. 4:38 a.m. 7 minutes. I crouched and stared at the security monitor under the counter. The split screen showed 4 feeds in grainy black and white. Front entrance, fuel pumps, aisle 3, restroom hall. I focused on the fuel pumps feed, top right corner. The diesel lane. Taylor was standing out there. She wasn't walking or moving. Just standing near the far pump, close to the figure I'd seen through the glass earlier. The one that had been completely still. The feed stuttered and skipped frames, but I could make out her shape. Navy polo, hair pulled back. She was positioned beside the figure, maybe 2 feet away, facing it, not running, not backing up, standing close, like she was checking on it, inspecting it, like a handler checking a cage. I leaned closer to the monitor. The figure was still motionless. Taylor shifted slightly, then turned her head toward the building, toward the camera. The feed skipped again, and when it returned, she was looking directly at the lens. I pulled back. My chest tightened and my hands went cold. The rules weren't about protecting me. They were about keeping this place fed, on schedule. So it didn't take everyone at once. That's what the lockbox did. That's what the receipts tracked. Names, dates, times. The store, or whatever this was, took people, one at a time, slowly. And the rules kept it satisfied enough that it didn't just collapse on everyone inside and swallow the whole shift. The yellow jacket man, the family, the knocking at the side door. All of it was the building feeding, and my name was on the next receipt. 4:45 a.m. I stood up fast and turned toward the front windows. The parking lot looked normal. A few rigs parked in the truck lanes. Wet pavement. Overhead canopy lights steady and bright. But the glass near the diesel lane. Something moved in the reflection. A flicker. A shape that didn't match anything in the lot. I looked at the clock again. 4:39. 6 minutes. I started cataloging exits. The front sliding doors were right there, 20 feet from the counter. Straight shot. My car was parked on the side of the lot near the air pump. I could be outside in under 10 seconds if I ran. The side door with the frost. That one was closer, maybe 15 feet, but the push bar still had that black metal underneath the white lines. I didn't know if it would open. Didn't know what would happen if I touched it. The back hallway had an emergency exit past the office. I'd seen it when Taylor walked me through earlier, but that was farther. And I didn't know if it was alarmed. I looked at the front doors again. They slid open when the family left, smooth, normal. But now, as I watched, a car pulled up outside and a guy in a baseball cap got out and walked toward the entrance. The doors hesitated. They started to slide, then stuttered, then opened the rest of the way, but slower than before, like they were getting stuck, like the building was tightening. The guy walked in, nodded at me, and headed toward the coffee station. The doors closed behind him. Slow. Dragging. 4:40 a.m. 5 minutes. I stayed behind the counter. I picked up the rag I'd been using earlier and folded it twice. My hands were shaking again. I set the rag down and reached for the spray bottle. Every time I followed the rules, the building stayed stable. The knocking stopped when I made coffee. The scraping eased when the steam got thick enough. The family unfroze when I stepped back and counted 30. Compliance kept it calm, so maybe if I kept complying, it would stay calm enough for me to walk out. 4:41. I grabbed the spray bottle and the rag and walked to the lottery display. The ammonia smell hit me when I sprayed the first section, sharp and chemical. It spread fast, cutting through the burnt coffee and stale air. I wiped the display in slow circles. The glass squeaked under the rag. The fluorescent lights above me steadied. The buzzing softened. I glanced at the security monitor from where I stood. The feed was still stuttering, but less. The image of the fuel pumps held for 3 full seconds before skipping. The restroom hall feed stayed clear. I kept wiping. 4:42. The receipt printer behind me went quiet. I hadn't noticed it was running, but now that it stopped, the silence felt heavier. I sprayed another section of the display and wiped harder. The ammonia smell got thicker. My eyes watered. The guy in the baseball cap grabbed a coffee and a bag of combos and walked to the counter. I set the spray bottle down and rang him up. $6.19. He paid cash, didn't say anything. Left through the front doors, which opened a little faster this time. 4:43. I went back to the lottery display, wiped the rest of it, sprayed the edge of the counter. The smell was everywhere now. My throat burned a little. The monitor under the counter stopped flickering. I could see it from the corner of my eye. The feeds were steady, clear. Jacob came out from the back hallway carrying an empty box. He didn't look at me, just walked past the counter toward aisle 4. The lights above him dimmed as he passed underneath. Not flickering, just dimming. Like something was pulling power away from them. He disappeared down the aisle and the lights came back up. 4:44. I set the rag on the counter and turned toward the register. 1 minute. The clock above the cigarette display ticked forward. 4:44 and 16 seconds. 17. 18. I thought about grabbing my keys. They were in my jacket pocket. Jacket was behind the counter on a hook. I thought about running. 4:44 and 31 seconds. The register drawer clicked. Not loud, just a soft metallic click. Then it slid open, smooth, no hands on it. The cash tray sat there, bills in their slots, coins in the round sections. The scanner beeped twice, sharp and clean. I looked at it. Nothing underneath, just the empty glass bed. Then I heard it. The lock box, under the counter, a soft tick, metal on metal. The latch. I stepped back, 1 full step, another half step. My hands were numb. I started counting. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It didn't feel like a safety measure this time. It felt like a countdown meant for me. 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder. The music cut out completely. 5 Mississippi. I glanced at the monitor. Taylor was on the feed. Fuel pumps. She was turning toward the building now, facing the store. Her shape was clear even through the stuttering frames. 6 Mississippi. The monitor cut to static. All 4 feeds. Just gray and white noise. 7 Mississippi. I stopped counting. I turned and grabbed my jacket off the hook, shoved my hand in the pocket. Keys were there, cold and solid. I didn't look at the clock. I ran, straight for the front doors. 20 feet, 15, 10. The doors started to slide open, then stuttered, stuck halfway. I didn't stop. I turned sideways and shoved through the gap. The edge of the door caught my shoulder, but I pushed hard and got through. Behind me, the lights inside dipped. Hard. Everything went dark for a full second. Then I heard it. A muffled impact. Like something heavy hitting the floor. The receipt printer started whining. High-pitched and mechanical. I didn't look back. I sprinted across the lot. My car was 30 feet away. 20. 10. I yanked the door open, threw myself into the driver's seat, jammed the key into the ignition. The engine turned over immediately. No clicking, no hesitation. I reversed fast, tires squealing, then shifted and punched the gas. The pilot travel center shrank in my rearview mirror. The canopy lights steadied, bright and normal. The diesel lane. The figure was still there, standing by the far pump, motionless. I kept driving. I didn't look back again. But I knew. I got out. I escaped. And Jacob was still inside. At 4:45 a.m. Exactly when the receipt said Bradley. The rules kept the building stable, kept it fed. And when I ran, someone else paid the cost.